We are getting set up for our next panel, Japanese Culture Experience with Aria. I just want to thank her for coming out and doing this panel with us. And also, we were supposed to have a second panelist, but unfortunately she was unable to come because, life happens and that's okay. But I wanted to thank her for reaching out to us to get this panel set up.
Oh, there we go.
You have to mute your video.
Oh, there we go.
You have to mute your video there.
Oh, there we go.
Ariana. You good to go?
I think I'm good.
All right. You are live.
Ooh, okay. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining this afternoon on this lovely winter day. I'm going to be presenting some information on life in Japan. I spent a couple years there with my partner, and so it's a pretty detailed slide deck, so I'm just going to check in on the chat from time to time, and if you do have any questions about any of the content that I'm sharing with you today, please feel free to any questions, and I'll do my best to answer what I can. At the end, I do have my email too, and you can also reach out by email if you would like to answer or would like to ask any other questions that I didn't get to. So let's roll. So first of all, I just wanted to share a formal greeting. Hajimemashite. So if I were to meet you for the first time in Japan, I would say Hajimemashite Aria no Witsman desu. Polite way of greeting someone. And there's a little bit of Kodo music I was going to play here for you, just for a moment. So Kodo performances where I was staying were very beautiful instrument, very challenging to play. So if you do find yourself in Japan and get to see a performance of the Kodo, it's definitely worth visiting or worth checking out. Okay. So I'm just going to go through a couple pictures here. It's truly beautiful. It's beautiful all year round. Temples are everywhere, and I mean everywhere. So no matter where you go, whatever journey you find yourself on, you'll have a chance to see a lot of beautiful countryside. It's a country where there's bustling city and excitement, and then absolute serene solitude. Depending on what you're looking to see while you're visiting, you will get both. And so I did want to start out with some must-see places. I'm just checking to see if there are any questions to start. Oh, right on. There's some hiragana in there. Thank you, paper boxes. I'm a little bit rusty on my hiragana, but definitely want to get back into that. So must-see places. This is the Golden Shrine in Kyoto. Do visit it. Kyoto is just, it's so fantastically beautiful. A good time to go is just before the cherry blossoms are in peak bloom. Simply because once they hit peak bloom, the tourism is very, very busy. You won't be able to move from shrine to shrine because there's just so much foot traffic. We went in around just before peak bloom hit, and it wasn't too busy. So we were able to enjoy a variety of beautiful different shrines, each with their own unique character without getting bombarded with foot traffic. So very, very pretty. Sorry, you'll have to bear with me. Oh, fantastic. You can hear the music. Okay, good. Thank you. Okay, fantastic. I was worried that both would be okay, fuzzy. I'm glad. The next one is Kamakura, and it's just a quick jaunt from Tokyo if you take a bullet train. And it's just such a breath of fresh air. Tokyo is so busy. It's so busy. It's so populated. In terms of cities, it's very clean. I love how well kept it is. Like you wouldn't see any garbage in the streets. You don't see graffiti. Like things are very, very clean and well looked after no matter where you go. And so if you do want to take a little break from Tokyo, you can visit Kamakura. And again, there's a lot of traditional buildings you can enjoy. and lots of green and lakes, and just a nice quality break. If you're more into busy, crazy, exciting Tokyo, Akihabara district, which is pictured just on the left over here, is a great place to do a lot of like video game shopping or fandom shopping. The prices are really good. There's so many stores. You can find some really great vintage tech there too, which is really fun. And it's neat because you can go into one store where the cell phones are like more a recent, higher tech than what you might see here, and then the store right beside it is like the jankiest of vintage technology. So it's such a great place of like different of juxtapositions, right, of differences. Down at the bottom here, this is a Shibuya crossing. It is crazy busy. Definitely worth a visit. I went there in the early morning and it wasn't quite so hectic, and then I went back in the afternoon when it started to pick up. Just a caution that if you do want to check out Shibuya, if you're shopping, multiple shops are often found on one floor. So when you go in, they're sort of stacked, like stores are in these tall, skinny buildings, and there are like multiple vendors. So if you're not careful, you could think you're going to pay for merchandise and end up in a different shop. So you want to make sure that when you are purchasing something, that you purchase it at the till closest to where you're shopping, or ask a clerk before you step out of one particular section to make sure that it's paid for. Another must-see place, Odaiba. Odaiba there's a huge animated Gundam there. It's way fun. During the day, you can enjoy taking a ride on the monorail. You can visit the islands. You can do some shopping. You can see some really neat tech demos. At night, everything is lit, and it's just really lively and fun. Below, we have the Asakusa Shrine in the Asakusa district of Tokyo. And like, this is one of my favorite places. It's so beautiful. It's so well kept. And it's like, you're in the middle of a city where there's recent technology, there's skyscrapers, everything is up to date. And then all of a sudden you turn a corner and there's perfectly preserved history, as it would have been thousands of years ago. And so I really appreciate that their historic buildings are so well taken care of. Gundam! All right. Some general etiquette, and some of these are really super funny. And I've got stories for each of them, but I'll have to watch my time. So, first of all, never stab chopsticks into your food. This looks like burning incense, pictured here. It's not appreciated. So, especially if the person you're eating with is superstitious, never do this. I was fortunate to learn a lot of proper etiquette from my sensei while we were there. And she just said, make sure that you are mindful of these things. And this was one of them. Try speaking even a little Japanese. They really appreciate the effort. They do. In other places that I've been to in the world where maybe you try to speak in French or whatnot, I found that there might be a disconnect, but I found in Japan, any Japanese that you try to use is so appreciated, and it's genuine. Like they really are grateful that you're speaking in that language, right? So don't be afraid to at least try, because it will be well received. Introductions, a subtle bow and no shaking of hands. So when you meet someone for the first time, you just want like a little bow. If you want to show, say if you're meeting somebody in a formal environment, like in a job interview, the deeper the bow, the more formal, I guess, of the interaction or the exchange. But for a casual hello, it's just a subtle bow. Number 4, pouring beverages for others is a sign of respect. So you don't pour your own drink. You always pour for others. And that's both hot and cold beverages. This one is interesting. A puffing of the face that face is a sign of frustration. This signals that the topic of conversation is uncomfortable and you should change the topic. So if you're talking to someone and they do that, it's really a polite way of saying, I'm uncomfortable. So just take that as kind of a cue to switch the conversation or move along, right? The number 6, kimonos are only worn for formal events and yukata for festivals and special events. Kimono are very formal. Yukata, you might actually see on a hot summer day people wearing yukata too. They are really comfortable and very pleasant to wear on a variety of occasions. Just checking, no questions so far. Okay. Another neat one. Number 7, walk to the left of a torii gate. So just picture to the bottom here, this is a torii. And the reason is this: the center is for spirits passing through and you need to make way for them. There is a real, even today, a very strong connection with the spirit world there. And so the ancestors and the spirits are treated with utmost respect. And so if you are visiting a place, just make sure that you move yourself to the left-hand side. And I think if you're walking with someone from Japan and they see you do that, they will really be very impressed, because that's not something that's common knowledge. Number 8, cell phone usage should never take place on a bus, in a train, or in a busy public space. So generally spaces, unless it's like you're in a restaurant, right? They like to have quiet places. And so transport are kind of treated as quiet places. So having like a loud, boisterous conversation on the cell phone would really be considered disrespectful. It's better to text in that case. Walking and eating is also considered a bit rude. So please ensure you sit to eat, no matter what you're eating. Cover up those tattoos. They may be trendy in some places, but where I was living, which was a little further north, the tattoos were not something they appreciated seeing. So, and it could actually even, if you're going to a job interview and they see that you have a tattoo, you could lose out on that job. So just make sure that you cover them up. And then the shower, bath, shower. So if you are in a house with a washlet, you don't actually, the shower and the bath are separate. So usually you shower before the bath, and then oftentimes the bath is kept in bathtub, kind of like a hot tub. And there's a system that will reheat the water. So you go into the bath already clean, and that way you can leave the water in the tub and reuse it. And then when you get out, you rinse again. All right, any questions about etiquette? No? Okay. Moving right along. Okay, so the 3 writing systems. So here we have hiragana, katakana, and kanji. Each are used in very unique cases. The hiragana is used for individual, like Japanese sounds, Japanese concepts, and Japanese words, whereas the katakana are for words that are brought over from foreign languages, like hamburger, for instance, or coffee. And so whenever you see a word that's not from the Japanese syllabary, you'll see this particular text used. Then the kanji represent a larger idea or concept or noun, and there are many of them. So it is a difficult language to master in terms of writing system. I found that whenever reading anything, I would see a lot of hiragana, and oftentimes having like 40 to 60 kanji will help you get by for the first little bit. And then if you wanted to move through your proficiency of Japanese, it's a leveling system starting with an N5, which is, general Japanese proficiency, to an N1, which is basically someone who's been speaking it all their life and has a good knowledge of technical language. But if you're just visiting for a short time, you do want to be able to identify things like the kanji for water for bathroom, for exit, right? To help you navigate your space. Oh, awesome. Thank you. Okay. So this one is a slide a little bit about working in Japan. And if you plan on going, I worked at 2 different places. My partner went through as JET, so his working experience was very different than mine. If you can go through the Japanese exchange teacher program, it's really, I would recommend it because they lay out a lot of the groundwork for you. When you go through, there's already a lot of community groups that are there to support you. They help you with the schools that you work in. They communicate with you and check in. But if you're going through as a separate or an individual hire, these are some things that will help you. So again, you'll want to have some Japanese proficiency before you go. And there are those 5 levels of testable proficiency, N5 to N1. Make sure you research your potential employer to ensure they are reputable. There are really, really fantastic businesses to work for, depending on if you're going over to teach English or if you're going over to offer medical support or farming or whichever industry you're interested in, right? Make sure you really research that employer to ensure that they will be supportive of your transition. Find out if they will sponsor your work visa, and this is required for an extended stay. So the work visa is a long and complicated process. Just make sure you ask lots of questions if that's something, or if that's an avenue you'd wish to take. And another thing, this is always a hard question to ask a new employer, but if the proposed salary will in fact cover your costs of living. Depending on what you're doing, the cost of living may be greater than what your earnings are, and where you're living, consider that too. And so if that's the case, you can sometimes negotiate with your employer an aid to find housing or accommodations that will fit for the salary. So for instance, where I was working, this wasn't required for me, but the teacher that came in after me was coming from the States, and my employer helped him find a place to stay because he was struggling in finding an affordable accommodation. So to secure his position, she helped him with that process. I don't know if all employers will do that, but I know mine did. And so that's a signal of a really good, reliable employer if they're willing to help you through that. So some will help you find housing, they'll help you opening a bank account, purchasing a cell phone plan, finding a family doctor if you're there for a long time. If a really good employer will help you with all those things. And just asking, right? Making sure that you ask is always a good way to start. A long-term stay would be considered more than 5 years. For JETs, the Japanese exchange teachers, they can only stay up to 5 years, and then they actually have to wrap up their program. In order to stay for more than 5 years, you have to be in one of these situations. So a spouse of a Japanese citizen or a permanent resident. You have to be a child of a Japanese citizen or permanent resident. You need to enter with refugee status. Or you can enter as a high skills professional and obtain long-term visa sponsorship this way. And so this would be through your employer and through the consulate. And for those individuals that we met who were living there long-term as professionals, most of them had an N3 to N2 Japanese proficiency. So they could speak it like it was their first language. And so just a little list of things to think about. But truly, no matter what you decide to do if you're working there, there's so much joy in it. This is a picture of one of the classes that I helped out there, but it's just the working environment can be really fun and positive. And so it's definitely, it feels like an overwhelming or scary aspect of living in another country, but there's so many more rewards. When you get to know a really good employer and you create a dynamic with your colleagues, it's just, it's a unique one. All right, questions about that? No? Okay. Moving right along. Mascots! So, mascots are everywhere. There are mascots for everything. And I'm actually going to start to get into talking a little bit about where I stayed. This is Fukushima here. I lived in Iwaki. And here are 3 mascots of the area. So the first mascot here is Kibitan. This is Fukushima Prefecture's mascot. He's super cute. And just to the right here, this is Hula Oji-san. Hula dancing and Hawaii was very trendy in Iwaki. And so they kind of had their own variant of like a luau and kind of characters that were based on those concepts. This is my particular favorite. This is a Kabe Akabeko, a little red bull who has kind of a sort of traditional fairy tale about him. But usually the mascots have some connection to the culture of the area or something unique about the area too. Red Bull, yup. And he actually, the funny thing about that tagline, Red Bull gives you wings, is, which is where I actually think the company might have been inspired by this, is there was a city that needed so much work done. People were living there and they had too much. And they were like, how are we going to build all our houses and complete our city? And then this little Red Bull showed up, and the next day things were built, the city was developed, and everyone was like, whoa, how did this happen? So he gave them the wings to fly in their community. So pretty cool. Okay, where I stayed, again, Iwaki, Fukushima. Truly the nicest people in the world live there. It was very, very welcoming. Foreigners were so appreciated. They went out of their way to make sure that you felt comfortable and at home. And so here we just have a couple. So that was the group that we were living with in the same building. And just a couple other pictures here. This is a delicious curry restaurant that's in Iwaki. We have this picture here, just a daily celebration and dining together. And hospitality was a really big thing. So truly just talk to people in the area. I met Maiko-san. I just met them through passing down the street and just started chatting, and they had a little bit of English. And they were like, oh, come and meet my family. And so there I went and met their family, and oh, come and have dinner with me. Come and see my grandfather. They just will reach out to you, and you'll get to meet all these awesome people. And it's just a matter of talking to everyone. It's really, there is no stranger danger here. And it's just so different from maybe busy places where that's a concern, right? How are we doing for time? So far, so good? Okay. This is, so some recommendations. Awesome. Oh, also local heroes. He is the best. Oh, thank you, paper boxes. I'm just checking to see if there's anything I've missed. All right. Moving, so mountain climbing. So pastimes, fun pastimes. Here we have to the left, Mount Bandai. To the bottom, Mount Futatsuya, or Mount Bandai-san and Mount Futatsuya-san. Named as if they actually, how do I describe this? They have, everything has life. And I think the Shinto faith, I hope I'm not incorrect in saying, but the Shinto faith that is celebrated there really imagines that there's a life force in everything. And so this includes the mountains, the rain, the moon, the ocean, right? Everything has this life. And so mountains have a character. And so they're looked at as almost like these great sleeping people that are celebrated. And so mountain climbing is a really big deal. Oh, Oh, it's so nice to see your face. Thank you. So I definitely recommend it. Plan your day. If you're planning on mountain climbing, mist can start to settle sometimes even earlier than 3. Like we were mountain climbing one day and it started to get kind of misty. The sky was clear as a bell in the morning. And then by 2 o'clock, there was like mist. We were trying to climb down Mount Futatsuya-san and it started raining and it was foggy, it was slippery, and we're lucky that we didn't break a bone because our vision was gone. So you'll want to make sure that you really plan your day and check your weather and start early in the day. So that way you're not stuck in misty, slippery weather that's very hard to climb in. Oh, thank you. I'm just checking the chat here. And then again, the one on the bottom is Futatsuya. So each mountain has its own kind of unique personality. Some are a steeper climb than others. Bandai is a little smoother. It wasn't so much like scaling rocks. It was more like a gradual countryside type climb. And it's funny because when I thought mountains, I used to think, are they long hikes? They can be. I went on a hike that was only 7 hours, and then I did Mount Fuji, that was 14. So Bandai and Futatsuya are smaller. And that's, Fuji's actually got stops that you can drive up to and they'll drop you off. So if the whole climb is too much, or if, say for instance, you're climbing with children, then you can take a kind of a drive up to one of the points and then you can climb the rest of the way. So Bandai I think was about 7 hours, Futatsuya was about 7 hours, Fuji was about 14. I would advocate not bullet climbing. That means you go, especially like big mountains, Mount Fuji, for example. A bullet climb is where you go up and then down and you don't stop. It's really, you don't feel well. Altitude sickness is really hard to bounce back from. Roger was he's a bit more of a sturdy fella than I am, so he was okay. But I got so ill at the top of Mount Fuji and it took a long time to adjust from it. So again, planning your route, taking it in stride, drinking lots of water, learn to pee in the outdoors. It's really important to kind of take a breather from time to time because that, especially if there's an extreme altitude, that can really affect how you're feeling. All right, more awesome stuff. So this is the Fukushima Fire Festival, because only in Japan will you see people climb up a 20-foot tall bundle of dry grass to light it on fire. It was crazy. There were people with these, it almost looked like a fishing line. And at the end of the fishing line, there was like a bundle of grass that they lit. And then they would dangle it over this pillar of dry rice grass, and then you'd watch it burn down. It was perhaps the craziest thing I've ever seen, but very, very cool and very controlled. So like buckets of water were everywhere. It was very monitored. The people that were doing this doing the lighting were all professionals who had done it every single year because it's like an annual thing. It's a way of cleaning up the rice grasses in that area. And so it's like using a waste product to create a fun event. So it's pretty cool. Absolutely professional pyros. And then they would actually have structures of old timber too that they were burning, which is what you see on the left-hand side here. Peeing in the outdoors is acceptable on hikes in Japan. Surprising. Yeah, you want to be discreet. I never saw anybody doing it, but I know there was a couple times where we were out and we were with a younger person who needed a bathroom. So just, be discreet. Okay, below, omikoshi carrying on New Year's is really neat. So this is mikoshi back here. It's kind of like a portable shrine, and it's believed to house sort of ancestral spirit. and it's heavy. So there's about 8 people carrying it. There's these 2 long poles, and you stand underneath it, and you put it on your shoulders, and you walk with it down the street, and you sing, and you drink. But you have to be careful because the group that we were with were really acrobatic, and they would actually throw this thing in the air and catch it, and it would land on the shoulders, and it felt like your shoulders were going to break. The people that did this year after year actually developed calluses on their shoulders from omikoshi carrying. So make sure that if you're going to join in on this kind of event, ask them if they just carry it or if they do acrobatics with it, because that can be quite a surprise, having an omikoshi dropped on your shoulder. And then in the morning, so our area, they actually ran it right into the water. They took the mikoshi right into the ocean. It's kind of like their version of a polar bear dip. So different regions have different celebrations and customs. So if you're, depending on where you're living, I would say just learn about the customs of your region, simply because it really gives you a chance to learn about that area and be part of that community. So, and it's very prefecture by prefecture. There are different traditions everywhere that, like, you might see mikoshi carrying in different prefectures, but they might have different clothing. They might do it at a different time of year. They might have a different song that they sing. So, actually, before I do that, I am just going to play, I'm just checking on my time here, a little video. Is this working okay? Can we see the video? Oh, no, hang on. I'd have to stop sharing for a moment here. Okay. Bear with me. Yep, that's the one. Okay, I'm gonna try. There we go. Are you seeing it okay? All right, so I'm just gonna play a little piece of a local celebration from where we were staying, and there we are. So I'm just gonna switch my screen over here for just a moment. So there we go, tab, and all right, is everything still coming through okay? Yep. And everyone can hear me okay? Teacher who knows how to show to use the G-chat. Great. So that, I wanted to actually share that too, because that gave you a little sampling of what is called Iwaki Ben. So, and I think a couple slides later, I cover exactly what the Ben is, but, or maybe I did talk about it already. Localized dialects. So it's kind of like in Canada when we have our accents, and you have like your West Coast and your East Coast and your Central Canada and then your Toronto tone of voice, but it's also certain words and expressions too. So Iwaki Ben, because it was more rural, it was considered as kind of like a country or Inaka dialect, so very countryside. And so people in Tokyo would sound very, very different than the people that lived in Iwaki. And so the singing that you heard there was in the Ben. Okay, so moving right along. One other thing, do talk to everyone. And so it is, as I had mentioned, it's nice to connect with foreigners, which these are a couple of foreigners who are teaching English there too. But truly, everybody has their own unique experience, and that's something that's so celebrated there. You'll sit down at a table with a bunch of strangers and learn that there are so many commonalities amongst you. It's really special. So yeah, just again, talk to everyone and get to know not just the people maybe you came with, but different people living there too. On an unrelated side note here, you can get everywhere by bullet train, and it's actually quite affordable and very efficient. And I find like it will help you navigate a little bit. So this is Miyazaki Studio Ghibli museum down here, and it's kind of tricky to find. So if you have a portable GPS and you really follow those the Shinkansen and those bullet train routes, that will help you get to where you're going. And this kind of brings me back to the talk to everyone. If you do find yourself lost, some places it might not be the safest to just go up to a stranger and go, "Hey, I'm lost, can you help me?" But there I found you could find anybody and they would be willing to help you out as much as possible. So if you do find yourself lost and your GPS is not working so well, do reach out to somebody and use the Japanese you can, because every now and then you will meet someone who can't speak any English at all. So that's where you'll want to make sure you've got some proficiency to help you along. Oh, okay, there's the Odori dance that I just showed you not too long ago. Okay, so a couple of things about holidays and celebrations. They do have some like Halloween, so some holidays that are sort of pulled from Western culture a little bit. They cross over a little bit. It's really interesting to learn how they adapt their traditions. So like Halloween there, this is a big photo of a big Halloween party. It's not a door-to-door trick-or-treat like it is here. It's more school-wide celebrations. So kids will get dressed up. They'll do trick-or-treating in their school. They might knock like on a neighbor's door, but they don't go down the street. So it's a little quieter in terms of traditions. But then they have things like their odoris that are huge celebrations, and everyone's in the street, everyone's singing and dancing and having a great time. And so, which is very local to the area, right? So it's just so cool because you do have familiar traditions and then very specific traditions to where you're staying. Questions about that one? No questions? Cool. Okay, moving on. One thing that absolutely you want to make sure you do is find time for nature. Some people would drive up to 2 to 4 hours to see a century-old cherry tree in full bloom, which is what we see here. This was a 4-hour drive from where we were living. It's really, as like I mentioned with the mountains, things in nature are celebrated. They're believed to have that life, and so this tree has been very carefully preserved. When the branches get too heavy, they actually prop them up with kind of like these wooden crutch type things. So the trees are very well taken care of, and that way they can continue to grow and thrive. Oh, people do that in Canada too, but very interesting. Yes. So I would say, like when we go, cottaging in the summertime, or it's kind of like that, right? Just getting out of the city and immersing yourself in nature is absolutely something I think we could say many Canadians share with Japan. They'll mention they've got the 4 seasons there, and then a lot like my so my sensei, this is my sensei, Chikako-san here, she'd ask, were you in Canada, do you get the 4 seasons? And I say yes, and they're always so surprised. But the 4 seasons, like the celebration of the changing of the seasons, is really important too. Driving for colored leaves, absolutely. And they have a really long fall season. Like I found that, and I'm trying to think of like a place in Ontario where we have a really prolonged fall. We take care of the local trees in Canada too. They're just not as pretty as Sakura. True. And like, I'm a big nature buff, so my family, we always kind of look for this sort of opportunity in Ontario, and so we were so excited to see that there was that connection with natural spaces there too. Okay. Volunteering. Orangeville, Wasaga, Dufferin, 2 hours north of Toronto. Yes. Or like Forks of the Credit. We get some pretty fall colors there too. I just wish sometimes it would last just a little bit longer. We get one big dump of snow and then everything's gone. Checking, so I got 20 more minutes. So I'm just kind of parsing my timing. Okay, so on a different topic. Okay, cool. So on a slightly different topic, do volunteer. When you arrive in Japan, one of the first things you're going to want to do after you get yourself established in a home, and maybe connecting with an employer, is visiting their local city hall. The city hall representatives there will help you in so many ways. You want the international, so for me it was Iwaki International Association, the IIA, but you're looking for the international office or booth, and there will be a representative there that can support you in English, and you can ask them all sorts of questions. Any questions from where can I find a good bank, to how might I go about insurance and that kind of thing, to driver's license, that kind of thing. They answer all manners of questions. They're very helpful. They will also help you find Japanese teachers who can help you with your language development there. That's where we met Chikako-san. And this is a languages class down here, actually. But they will connect you with languages experts to help you with that. One interesting thing too is that languages truly are loved. So this is actually a French, English, Japanese class, to be specific. They like language exchanges. So if you can come in with another language and share that addition to English, like Spanish, German, Arabic, any other language, it's really appreciated if you can offer that, because there are lots of individuals that are always looking for support in a multitude of languages. Fall in Ontario is so much longer than in Calgary. How long is it in Calgary, Kiara? Out of curiosity. Is it 3 weeks of fall leaves and then boom? I'll check into the chat. Okay, so that's 1 to 2 days, or 1 day to 2 weeks maybe. Boo, that's not enough fall. Need more fall. There you can also learn about ways to volunteer. So for instance, here we're actually removing invasive plants and overgrowth of bamboo. This is in the exclusion zone that was hit by the tsunami, the nuclear disaster. So they were actually starting to wear safe, where the cesium has either been extracted or settled. They were starting to check with Geiger counters where it was safe to let volunteers in to rebuild. So we went in to help kind of clean up the property for the family that wanted to move back into their traditional home there. And it was really a special moment, because when you drove by that area, it was just green space and vacant city. And so they're trying, in Minami-Soma, they're trying to kind of clean up the area so that it can be eventually reclaimed as home space. So that's that one there. And then down here, we are volunteering at a blood donor clinic. And anime is everywhere. There's their mascot at the blood donor clinic. But that's a really neat way that you can help support the community that you're staying. Okay. And so some other fun things. This is an Attack of the Kotatsu monster, we call it. And this is where you enjoy, so this is sort of a like customer tradition, a huge meal of nabe and sake followed by karaoke under heated tables, a really nice thing to do on a rainy day. And there are a lot of rainy days. Where we were, it was monsoon season, in and around, I'm trying to remember when monsoon season was, May. And there would be rain upon rain upon rain. And so you'd have to find ways of staying dry and warm in apartments that have space heaters or like a fuel burning type heater and no central heat. So this is how you stayed warm. The food was so good. And so another thing I wanted to mention is definitely shop at a variety of grocery stores. Food experience in Japan is so much fun. There are apps for label reading if you don't know what you're buying. This is Lalamu here. This is a famous fish market that we went to. It was popular for squid jerky, which you see over here on the right, which actually is very tasty. It doesn't look like it is, but it's quite like it's salty and it's really yum. This is manju, which is like kind of like the red bean paste, but it's sort of in a black sugar bun. This is my favorite. This is mitarashi dango, which is like kind of like a mochi with like a sweet and salty drizzle on top with soy sauce and sugar. And then this is karento. Regions will have special treats that are hard to find. So the black sugar manju and the black sugar karento are actually Iwaki's kind of food. It's kind of special to the area, so it might be tricky to find. And that's where omiyage is very important. If you're visiting somewhere, it's good to buy something and bring it back to your employer. As kind of a way of saying, you know, thank you for the time off. I brought you back a little token of gratitude. So that gift giving and the way it's packaged as well is really important. Now I'm hungry. The food is so fantastic. I just want to check how many slides I've got here in case I have to speed up. Might need sushi tonight. There's a place in Act now. Yum. Fun fact for those of you who are into Ace Attorney Corinto is snackus. Ooh, I did not know that. They're so crunchy and good. Here are 3 local temples out of the area that I was staying in. So this is Shirimizu Amidado, which was built for a husband, or by a husband who loved his wife dearly and wanted to create a shrine for her. And so there's a little bit of history there. And then here is Hoyoji in Aizu. This is in the middle of the forest. We found it walking, and it was just there. Like, you're just walking through the forest and, you know, humming a tune. Boom, there's like a 3-story pagoda. It's just unbelievable. And then this one over here is actually, it's Akadake. It's a Iwaki hidden treasure. This was my absolute favorite shrine because it's really obscured. You wouldn't know unless you went looking for it. There's a giant bell you can go and ring and pay your respects or pray. It's so quiet and calm and just truly beautiful. Just a little quick bit on calligraphy and just other traditional customs. So you can go and see calligraphy galleries. You can, through the international associations, if you want to actually learn how to do proper calligraphy, you can often connect to a sensei who will teach you how to do that. So that would be, again, if that's something you'd like to do, reach out to your international association and request, you know, information about a possible teacher. And then oftentimes galleries will showcase calligraphy and then traditional clothing. So you'll see kimono, for instance. Down here is Mom and me wearing some very beautiful kimonos. And then there are very specific instructions on how to put on a kimono here. For the sake of time, though, I'm just going to have to skim ahead. But Iwaki does have the world's largest kimono, which I cannot find a picture of anywhere, but it was made to fit the Gundam in Odaiba. And it was fashioned by Aiko Kobayashi, but we did get to see it, and it's monstrously huge. It's blue and white. And so if anybody can find a picture of it, please send it to me because I haven't been able to. I never took a photo on the day, but it's super cool. A brief bit on Japanese theater. You can see No and Kabuki in Tokyo. You can actually, so we saw some theater where we were living too. We actually saw a ballet, which was sort of like, it was like a Western adaptation. But if you would like some traditional theater or taiko drumming, you have to make sure you really plan your day and get your tickets in advance because kabuki shows can run up to 4 hours long. So you can actually just purchase a single act ticket and just go and see a single act, especially if like you're traveling and you only have so much time, or if you have little people who are super wiggle bottoms and won't sit. You could take them over just a single act and still get to enjoy that experience. Oh, yay, my timing couldn't have been better because I think this is my last slide. Yay! Okay, so last but not least, the importance of celebrating time together. Be sure if you go to visit some local breweries, craft breweries are really just like they are here, they're really celebrating a heyday right now. But you can still find plenty of sake, umeshu, and shochu shops with local flavors and flavors that are like specific to the region. It's neat actually if you go into the building because it's got a very like the fermentation smell. It's very sweet and it gets into the wood and like the whole building just smells of sake. So it's kind of a neat experience for you. And then of course you would celebrate with the kampai. All right. Thank you, everyone. So there's my email if you have any questions or if you're looking at traveling to Japan and you'd like to know a little bit more about like avenues about how you can go. Also, my husband Roger went through as a jet, so his experience was a little bit different from mine and how I was working. And I was working at a gakudo in a kindergarten as a separate hire. So if you want information specific about the jet program, I can always field those questions through Roger, and he can answer them for you. Yoroshiku onegai shimasu. Thank you, everyone. Are there any questions? Checking in the chat just to see.
That was so great. Thank you very much.
Thanks for having me and not minding my sniffly voice.
I think everyone right now has a little bit of something. The advantage of an online con, you can still attend if you're sick. You can lie on your couch in your PJs.
Wearing yoga pants.
Actually, I am too. All right. Well, thank you very much. Up next is Dan's panel.